Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Brendan McElroy here with the Watch That podcast. So excited and happy to have you here again for this season 2 episode. I'm grateful to have a fellow podcaster, someone that is actually doing some phenomenal work on his show here with us and on our first Zoom episode for myself. So we're super excited to kind of get going. So welcome to the show, Jesse. I am so excited to have you here and really get to talk to you, learn a lot about you as well as about your show and just life as fatherhood in your world. So kicking us off, tell us a little bit about Jesse and what you got going on.
Well, I'm a man of faith first and foremost. I'm a husband, father. I'm a men's relationship coach. It's what I do full time. Yeah, I'm a passionate archery hunter. Love going to the gym.
Nice.
Just a little bit about me.
A little bit. That's fair. Mm-hmm. I had the opportunity to kind of listen to a couple of episodes that you have, and phenomenal work just kind of working with and really giving into those conversations and all. I love just the natural way that you do, and I think that's kind of the part of what we look at here at Watch That, right? It's just like, hey, who are individuals, right? And how do we share our story and how do we work through life on a general from there? So thank you for your work that you do on your podcast. Can you dive in a little bit for us, just kind of what got you inspired in that space and what keeps you motivated and going?
Well, the motivation is that I really enjoy it. So it's easy to continue to do podcasts, edit and post those on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, etc. That's the easy part. But how I got started was kind of a push from my wife, where I would talk to her girlfriends and their husbands or boyfriends about their relationships. And my wife's like, you should just put this out on like social media. And I wasn't into social media, wasn't into podcasting. And she did. She just pushed it, told me to post. And I had a couple things go viral kind of off the bat. And yeah, there was a point where you can only give so much to a video on Instagram.
Yeah.
And again, my wife was like, I think you might come off and rub people the wrong way in a 30-second clip. So maybe give some context and go in depth podcasting. And I was like, I'm in. And the first 3 episodes are rough. I'm like staring at a wall, pretending like I'm talking to somebody, doing them solo. But now I don't mind doing a full episode solo, just talking to with myself. But yeah, it was rough in the beginning. But as you know, you tend to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, time does help a little bit there, and as you learn the different things that you realize are good, bad, and ugly from there. No, definitely. What has been something for you that's really stood out, maybe a lesson learned throughout this process that you've applied to just your life, fatherhood of this career and kind of starting into this space? Like what stood out to you?
I don't know if anything has stood out, but one thing that I love about it is having a community of men who you don't probably will meet in person, but that you guys can learn from one another and continuously like leveling up in the information that you're sharing. I really like that. There's a handful of guys who I've met from the podcasting, and we continue to text, shoot phone calls, hop on Zooms, and continue dialogue together.
Yeah, well, that's pretty awesome. Do you find yourself kind of sharing some of those lessons like at home with your little ones, or how does that typically happen for you as far as taking some of the things that you've learned back?
I don't know if it's specific things like that, but just being able to, because like I have a community, a men's community also, and so some of these guys will jump on and we'll just feed off one another in these conversations that we go through.
Yeah,
and it's really nice. Or I guess off the top of my head, with the little ones, having them present themselves with intention, like introducing themselves full first and last name. It's like I learned that from a buddy who was on my podcast, who we still talk every week actually now,
Yeah.
because that was one of his big things. And it's like, yeah, it's like I like that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something, life lessons that you can take and learn. My daughter, it's kind of funny you say that. My daughter is in a school where they make them go through that process, right? Of like, introduce yourself, say hello, make sure you use your full name before we dive into whatever you need, right? You have to actually give a moment of dressing kind of the room to go through that. So that's actually a good life lesson, at least, that has been good there. Now, your little ones, you have how many again? Is two?
Two boys,
Two boys? And how old are they?
2 under 9.
209. That's awesome. Awesome. Are they into sports already, or they're still
Oh yeah.
yeah?
Oh yeah, they both wrestle year round. They're both also in soccer right now while they're wrestling, and they're both in gymnastics right now while they're wrestling and playing soccer. They've the older one, he's also done golf, a number of seasons of golf, and flag football. He's done a number of seasons of flag football as well.
That sounds like a very, very busy afternoon schedule.
Yeah, with the golf, they had and the gymnastics, it's during the day. So like a homeschool
Okay.
type of class, which I love.
That's awesome. That can definitely help out a little bit. How is life in kind of coaching? Do you do coaching for both of them, or do you kind of sit back? What's your style when it comes to just interactions with them on their sports levels?
Well, I love that the older one and obviously the younger one, because he wants to follow suit of the older one. He wants me to coach him in everything. The only thing that I'm not an actual coach of his is in wrestling.
Okay.
We do stuff at home, but as far as the flag football and the soccer, I've actually been his coach every year.
Really?
And I really enjoy it. And one of the things that we do with all the kids is we make them shake hands, look each other in the eye. They all line up, go down the row. And then after practice and after the games, I actually make them go and thank all the parents and shake their hands.
Really?
Yeah.
Where does that come from in your mind? Like what kind of got you started on that tradition?
Oh, I think there's been a couple of decades of parents who raise kids who, just don't have the backbone to order their own food.
Mm.
And by kids, I mean teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you start young, they're just going to be used to it.
Fair. You get them going earlier with that just mild respect, right? And being able to communicate.
And the parents love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they think it's awesome because they're in a line just going through all the parents shaking their hands, and I'm always reminding them to look them in the eye.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. So how many years have you been coaching? Is it just for your boys, or were you in coaching prior to?
I've had buddies ask me to help coach prior, and I just never did because it's like, why would I go and take my son and have him just hang out or take my time away from my family? So I didn't do any coaching until my son started to get into sports.
Okay. That was a really good moment for you all to kind of bond together and build more? How did that go for the two of you?
Definitely a little bit, because I'm fortunate enough that I work from home. My wife's a stay-at-home mom. So they don't know what it's like to have a father go to a 9 to 5 and then have to rush them to sports. Like if me and my wife had a 9 to 5, there's no way they'd be into the sports like they are.
Okay.
So we practice. If they want to practice a lot at home, I make myself available.
Okay.
But right now, I mean, they love me being coach, and they're always wanting me to coach them and this and that. And there's sometimes I'm like, I don't know anything about that.
A lot of YouTube videos and
yes, the YouTube.
Nice. Yeah, my daughter started into soccer last year. Well, 2 years ago now, and she just actually kicked off soccer again. And so it's been like, all right, let me learn all the rules to make sure I'm not teaching you something you're not supposed to be doing in this process. So no, that's pretty cool. What in your experience as a coach, are there things that you see, just, let's say my daughter's there on your team, what would you look for from fathers that are involved or engaged? Is there any tips that you would give a father that wants to get their kid engaged and how to be there for them or how to be present there for them?
Make sure that their child enjoys it. There's just too many parents who put their kids in sports because they want them to play those sports, and they never even ask them if they like it.
Really?
And the kid just shows up.
Wow.
Oh yeah, especially when you start getting competitive, it's like, who is this really for? Because like he's played. He likes to go to football camps. I have some buddies who played Division I football, played on NFL practice squads. You know, there's some guys there who've been in the NFL who are part of some of these football camps that we go to.
Yeah.
And there are dads out there who've never accomplished a single thing, and whose sons, I don't think, want to be out there. But the dads are like, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that sucks. It sucks for the kid.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of data behind how right now there's the biggest decline in sports participation at 13 years old because they're quitting because it's parents who are pushing them into sports.
Gotcha. Have you ever had any combos with any of those parents that, to kind of call that out at all at any point? Or do you just kind of keep going, coach?
One was at wrestling, and I'm not even a coach, but it's like, hey, buddy, you're kind of embarrassing your son because this guy was giving his son a hard time about his push-ups. And it's like, you don't look like you can do as many push-ups as him. Don't like you're not helping him by embarrassing him in front of everybody.
Right. You're definitely not instilling any type of confidence or any type of helping to really drive him towards even short term or long term, right? Like the way that you're watching it and going through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, when like in your experience as a dad, right, within that space and within kind of what you're doing as a coach and rep for your child, what do you hope to kind of instill in them or give them by being that coach or being a part of that process? Like, what is your goal when you're doing that outside of obviously winning and getting to a good space? Do you have any like kind of thought process of like, this is what I want you to take away from dad being here with you?
Just that they have fun.
Yeah.
Fun and their effort. So like one of the things I tell the kids is when you're working with kids under 9, like, parents want to see their kids win, and that you have half of the kids who want to win, but nobody cares 10 years later what you won when you were 9.
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
No one's going to remember it.
True enough.
So it's like, how do we have fun, develop kids in whatever sport it is that they're playing?
Yeah. No, that's fair. Because the little participation trophy sits on the dresser and it gets dust and you never look at it again from there. But what life lesson did you take out of it, right? Whether it's trying hard, doing your best, or through that moment, that maybe didn't work out all that great for you.
Sticking to your commitments. Like, it sucks, it's hard, it's cold out during whatever season. Like, well, you wanted to do this, so you got to continue. You can't just quit.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm interested, just because your little ones are a little older than mine. What's your speech current day when it comes to that, like, Dad, I want to give up, right? Like I really wanted to do wrestling, really wanted to get into it, but it's harder than I thought. I think I want to give up. What's your go-to message in that?
So the only time that they've not wanted to continue was in wrestling.
Okay.
And the reason behind it was it's hard. And he was like, football's easy. Let's just do football. And it's like, well, we're gonna do wrestling year round. And there's weeks where he'll not go because we'll give him like little vacation weeks and he won't go. But it's like, we have to do hard things in order to succeed. We have to suffer in order to build resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And for my sons, wrestling is something I'm never going to let them quit. We're not having a season where at the end they don't ever have to go back, because it's just part of rite of passage to manhood.
Yeah.
It's one little aspect that I'm having them go through, which is wrestling until they're 18. They're going to wrestle. And when he didn't like it because it was hard, and I explained, we do hard things. I try to use this example, like, because I compete in strongman competitions, and he came and watched me like just however many months before, and I'm like, did it look easy what Dad was doing? And he said yes. And it's like, well, it sure as heck wasn't.
Right.
Like lifting 550 pounds in this event or 455 in this event, like that stuff's not easy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, it's not. It is hard. And I was hoping he was going to say like that looked really hard.
Yeah.
So then I could like correlate, like, did you see how I was on the podium? And it's because of all the hard work. And it's all the hard work like every single morning. Because they know, they don't ever see me work out.
Yeah.
But they know, because my wife talks about it, I talk about it, that I go to the gym before they're ever awake. And they call it like Dad gets up at 0 dark 30. And so it's like I'm up and going to the gym lifting, and it's like all of that hard work, it sucks. Most people don't do it. So this is what allows me to be on the podium. And it's like, okay. So it's just trying to like relate and let them know, like, I was where you were at once. But it's like, and then now he loves wrestling. He loves it.
Yeah.
He's been on the podium a couple times. And then he's like, oh, all the hard work. This is so much fun now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What do you think when you look at that and you kind of zooming out a little bit just from your own home? What's the impact of fathers that you see or maybe don't see, right, when you're coaching to that for the other kids, right? Like, are there gaps that we have as fathers today that we could be stepping up more to help support the kids? Or do you feel like, it's kind of a wash? Like, how do you feel there?
Oh, I feel that we could do a whole podcast only on that question. First, I think when it comes to the question of like what we can do as fathers, we need to love our wives. First and foremost, we need to actually demonstrate what it truly means to treat a woman and treat our wife so that they know what it is. When you relate it to like the sports or what fathers need to do is, one, we need to father intentionally. Fathers, from what I see now and previous handful of generations, never parented and fathered intentionally. They just kind of went with whatever happens. Let's say the kid gets in trouble, then we want to come down with a hammer.
Yeah.
What if the kid is talking back to mom, not listening to mom? A father doesn't step in and tell mom's like, do I need to get your father? And then they call their husband and, will you come in here and talk to your son or daughter? Then they step in. There's nothing intentional about that style of parenting.
Yeah.
Or fathers want to get off work, come to the sporting thing, see that their kid didn't do very well. As soon as they're in the car, they're ripping their ass. And it's like, you're just going to ruin it for your child because you haven't actually even cultivated a real relationship where you are present every single day, all moments when you're around them. And then they get done with this sporting event and you just want to rip their ass.
Yeah.
Because they had a shitty practice, or maybe they're just not very good yet. It's like kids are still learning how their bodies work at a young age. Yes, there are those kids who are absolute studs, but that doesn't mean that absolute stud at 9 years old is going to be the best 19-year-old.
That's true.
There's a lot of data around that. It's like, we all remember those kids who are like, man, little Johnny was so good when we were in elementary school, middle school. And then by the time we were in high school, he was still 5'6", still 120 pounds, and everyone else grew around him. We became faster, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But parenting intentionally, loving our wives and parenting intentionally. Like, people do not parent intentionally.
Yeah.
Or at least men don't.
You think we live a lot out to chance or just kind of more situational? Like as things are going, we kind of handle that situation and we keep it pushing, or like what's your take on that specifically? Do you think that's kind of where we fall into that line?
It's definitely chance because men actually don't do what is required to teach their sons how to become good at being a man. It's just one day by magic fairy dust.
Yeah.
You're supposed to understand what it is to be a man.
Yeah.
Maybe that's when you're 35. Maybe it's when you're 27. Maybe I will talk to men and they'll think, oh, when you are responsible. And I'll tell them, okay, well, I have a son who's under 9. He has a list of chores. There'll be days he'll do them without anyone asking.
Yeah.
Does that make him responsible? Well, yeah. Does that make him a man? Well, no.
Right.
Okay. So, all right, that definition, that's out the window. And then people will say, well, when you're married with kids and you're paying your own bills. All right. There's a lot of shitty husbands out there and shitty fathers who are paying their bills every single month, who are married, have kids. Does that actually make them a man? Well, I guess when you put it that way, no. It's like, so I'll have conversations with men who don't even understand what it means to be a man or what it even means to be good at being a man.
Yeah.
And if, as fathers, we don't intentionally put in that work, it's like you said, we're just playing it by chance.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they'll figure it out one day, or a situation will come up that really the parents have never talked about,
Yep.
you know, or the husband has never thought of, and he'll just react. And that's just as bad as parenting by chance.
Yeah. Yeah, because that reaction could be the thing that stays with his entire existence, right? Like however extreme that reaction is, could be the thing that changes, that moment for him long down the line, right? So being intentional with it as a father today could have helped prevent or at least save him from an emotional reaction that puts him in a bad space long term, right? From that.
Yeah.
As obviously an extreme, but it's we see all the time.
I don't think it's an extreme, because how many people do you know or have you come across who they have shy kids who are like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're shy.
Yep.
But they will also mention how outgoing they were at 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, every 2 and 3-year-old, they're the most confident humans on earth. They think they can take on anything. That's why 2-year-olds are trying to climb up everything.
Yeah.
They want to do everything we want to do. And it's our reactions, however many it is, whether it's 1 or whether it's 5 or whether it's 100, is going to put them a place of where they're filled with such anxiety, they're walking on eggshells, that they're just shy and shut down.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, someone's going to react.
Yeah.
And that don't feel good.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. It's definitely one of those things of an opportunity and space that we could dive in further as fathers, just to as you mentioned, just be intentional, right, about how we are upbringing our young ones and making sure that they really have all ends. What would you say is one thing that I can use the word afraid or most concerned about for your sons as you're going, right, as a father? What is that thing that stands out to you that you're like, man, I want to either prepare them for this, right, be intentional about getting them ready for this space or getting them to a good place, and it would make me feel good as a father to say that was checked off. What's that one thing you think?
I mean, I feel like it's the teaching them how to be good at being a man and them knowing exactly what that is. I wouldn't say it's a fear now, because I have a plan and I'm constantly checking and adjusting. The more that I am diving deep into this space and understanding, and just like every contract, you can renegotiate a contract. So if I have a contract laid out on how I'm getting my son from point A to point B, and point B is the end destination, the end goal, like leave the nest, you have all the skills. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to check and adjust along the way. Right now, that's not necessarily a fear, but I can tell you when I first heard he was pregnant, I didn't even know I didn't know what any of that shit meant.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the only man who doesn't know what that is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. When you look at, and we've kind of touched on this, I guess, with intentionality, But I'll pose the question anyways in case there's more that you want to expound on. Do you think there are other things that fathers today were missing? Like, are there things we're missing outside of intentionality with making sure that we're on top of it? Do you feel maybe in your conversations and things that you've heard through your spaces, like, are there things that we are missing in general today in that mark?
I think going back to how we treat their mothers,
Okay.
because statistically, your children will have the exact same marriage that you have. And now I've met men and women who will say, no, I'm nothing like like a man will say, I'm nothing like my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And a woman will say, I'm nothing like my mom. And it's like, it's because that man is just like his mother was. He's not like his father, but now he's a testosterone filled version of his mom because his parents had a semi-toxic relationship. And it's like, well, that's almost worse because you're your mom, but filled with testosterone and 6'4", 250 pounds.
Right.
Okay. Or like the woman will be like, no, I'm just like my dad, blah, blah. It's like, okay, so now you want to take on this masculine role and you are looking for a passive man, but it's only going to cause you more stress. Yada, yada. I could talk about that for a while, but it's like, how are we truly treating their mothers? Because it's going to be the blueprint for the marriage that they go off of. And too many parents live through their children and stop dating each other. They stop loving each other. And then when these kids leave the nest at 18 or 22 or whatever it is, you have two people who claim they love each other, but they're actually strangers. And is that the model we will really want to give for our sons and daughters?
Right.
So I think we got to remember the basics.
Yeah. What are some things that you maybe do for yourself and in your space of intentionality, right, with your wife to kind of model that for your boys? Like, what are some of those things that just you would either suggest or you take part in?
Oh, well, one, when we talk about love and it's like, I'll tell my wife I love her, and then like the boys, and like I will let them know that I love their mother more than them. And the first time they hear it, they can be like, oh, that's not fair. And it's like, you'll understand this later, like one day. And then they're like, I'm not going to love anyone more than mom. It's like, but one day you will.
Right.
And one day you'll understand this. And just the fact, like, I'll just randomly dance with her in the living room and they'll see that. I'll give her a twirl the other way. Or when I come home from whatever it is, because again, I don't have a 9-to-5,
Yeah.
but anyone listening who has a 9-to-5, it's like when you come home, you need to put deposits into your wife. Let your children see that you're putting deposits into the wife first, not the dog, not the kids who are running after you. You almost need to face palm them. Go to mom.
Yeah.
Give mom love. Give her that oxytocin by giving her physical touch, and then give the kids their rough and tumble hugs, tossing them on the couch, give the dog love. But we need to really focus on like the wife, because they will see that and they'll appreciate it, and they'll feel so safe in an environment where the parents love each other.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, you call out a good point that, today it does seem, that society has almost lost hope and value, right, in that healthy relationship, healthy space. And maybe that's what's driving the lack of intentionality, right? It's kind of like, well, I've seen so many things fall apart in my upbringing, or my friends, parents aren't together, those types of things that I've experienced. And maybe that's where some of that intentionality is kind of falling apart, or we've grown a generation of young people, right, that don't have the same amount of value in that home and that life. Is that something that you see, or how do you feel about that?
I think you're spot on. I mean, culturally, we've talked about how there does not need to be the nuclear family.
Yeah.
We're trying to tell women, like, oh, you can raise kids all on your own. You'll be fine. You don't need a man to support you. It's like, well, a woman cannot show a boy how to become a man. And I have empathy for every single mother out there because they are trying. But now where you lose me is when you try to tell me that you can raise a son into a man versus being honest and going, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, man, I don't even shower every day. And for me to think that I could teach a daughter, if I didn't have a wife, how to grow up to be a feminine woman and understand her most feminine features,
Right.
I can't do that.
Right.
I don't shower every day. I eat meat all day. I don't even wear a shirt half the year. I'm that guy out there shoveling snow with no shirt. I mean, I spit a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not because I chew. I just, for some reason, I have a habit where I spit.
Yeah.
I'm not teaching a young girl how to grow up to be a woman.
Yeah.
Or a lady.
Yeah.
So for any time a woman says that they'll be just fine raising their sons, it's like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
You're going to harm that child unintentionally.
Yeah. Yeah. For everything that you're trying to do, right. Yeah. There's still that level of need, right. For both sides of that coin, and that balance. And I mean, that's been data proven over and over again, about the impacts of two-parent households, or at least, having the roles, we'll put it that way, within that household, right? And having that. So that being said, what is the role that we play, or can we play, as father figures, right? Like, if you're a father figure to someone, you've kind of stepped into a space to help out, or to be a role model. Is that just as impactful in your purview and what you see? And if so, like, how can we best play that role model for that young person?
I definitely think men need to play a role model figure. And back in the day when I had a corporate job, I had this soft spot for single moms. And I would the second they would in an interview tell me they're a single mom, I'd be like, fuck, I gotta hire this lady. And I would hire them. But I would always, after building a relationship, tell them, like, is your son in a sport? Is your son in a sport where, like, they can be with the same coach for X amount of years and, like, he a good guy? Trying to actually indirectly push them into getting their son into a place where they're going to have a solid role model. Whether it's a boxing gym, a club basketball team, the wrestling gym, whatever it is. It's like, that Pop Warner football coach who they're going to play with for like 7 years.
Yeah.
Because that's very real, being a role model or father figure for a guy who is not your kid. And I think those are just as important. And it's why collectively, culturally as men, we need to make sure we're on top of our Superman game.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason they're looking up to us. Not just because we're the only dude in the parking lot and they're like, hey, can you help guide me through life? 'Cause that's not how it works either.
Right. No, that makes sense. Kind of staying in that vein a little bit, but slightly different. What is a piece of advice that maybe you heard, right, growing up, that helped you in your fatherhood journey, right, and helped you to kind of get through? As we all know, we had these kids and nobody gave us a training manual to go with it, right, outside of what we saw and we experienced. But are there things that maybe you were given or shared that were strong pieces of advice as you've been raising your boys?
One comes from my father, who's technically my stepdad, but he's my father through and through. One time, and I've only told this story, I think, one time before, there down the street, you could hear this couple just screaming and yelling. And they didn't live on our road, but they had pulled over and they were fighting. And he's screaming at this lady. And it's in the middle of the day. And my father, we walk out to see what's going on. And this has stuck with me ever since. And I was probably like in third grade. And he's like, there's nothing manly about a man getting into a woman's face to intimidate her or yell at her. And it goes for doing the same thing with children. Like, you shouldn't be trying to intimidate a woman or child. And that just always stuck with me. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, it's like, how do you cultivate almost a warrior mindset that you're not quick to anger in any sort of confrontation with your wife or with your children? Because it's like, think about that. If like a 6 or a 9 or 10-year-old can get you angry, they realize they have control over your emotions.
Yeah.
Kids are smart.
Yeah.
We don't give them as much credit as they are. And then just how mentally weak are you that you're like, this little tiny fraction of myself, that he's the size of my leg, can get me this pissed.
Right.
And it's just something we got to think about and realize.
Yeah. No, that's solid advice, and solid way to think about it, because things do happen, and you do get kind of in your feelings, but being able to control that, right, and step back and say, hey, let me reflect on where I'm at for a moment, right, before trying to put that out, and in one way or another, a show of force, right, to someone else, specifically people that I love, right, and that I am here to be supportive or help to grow and all.
Yeah, like two things you said, being in your feelings, like feelings are good.
Yeah.
Feelings are amazing. But it's like, when do you allow feelings to turn into something negative,
Yeah.
and that you don't have control over? And then the second point that you said, to the people that we say we love the most, like we say we love our wife and our children more than anything.
Yeah.
But then in relationships, oftentimes it's the first person who gets like the wrath, the anger, who is belittled, who we will curse at. It's like we kind of got that thing backwards.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Definitely with you on that. As you look over, your experiences and kind of where you're headed in your space with your fatherhood, but also just your work, what's something that you want to be kind of left behind of the work that you're doing, and the impact that you're looking to have on men just in general in your space?
I want to impact 1 million men positively. And then as far as a legacy, wherever my sons go, because of who they are, the way they carry themselves in their name, that they are just respected and they are conveying respect. That's it. It's pretty simple for me.
Hey, that's awesome. Sometimes that's the best way, right? Short, sweet, and this is the point. This is where we're going. As we round it out here, what's something that you hope a father that may be watching this episode, right, takes away? What's something that you would want them to have from you, Jesse, and your space, that they can apply to their life?
Be willing to be humble. Look in the mirror, get rid of all your pride, ignore that insecurities that you have. Look in the mirror, say, hey, I don't know what it is that I'm doing maybe in some aspect of your life, your relationship, and look to someone and get help. Because at one time in history, we were all people, we're communal people, we were in tribes, we were in communities, whatever, gangs, brotherhoods, whatever you want to call it, whatever term.
Yeah.
And so we had each other to essentially continuously force one another to level up for the survival of the community. But we've gone into an individualistic society, so we don't have those things.
Yeah.
So we need to, like I said in the beginning, we're not teaching our sons how to be men, okay? So the guys listening to this, they weren't taught. I'm not saying every man, but the guy who the message is for. And that's okay. You just got to be humble enough to find someone, even if it's the old guy down the street who's always walking, holding hands with his wife, and it's like, man, he just looked like he had the greatest life. His kids were respectful. They still come and see him. Maybe you reach out to him. Mm-hmm. Maybe they reach out to you. Maybe they find me on like an Instagram or something. But somebody, you just have to be willing to do that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And humble is the way, right? Taking pride, setting it to the side, because it's not going to get you anywhere, right? Like long term, it's not going to get you the help that you may be looking for, the need that you may have. One of the things I think I mentioned before, like on this podcast, a lot of the fathers say we don't talk a lot to each other. We don't talk a lot to share and learn from one another, learn the experiences that we're having. Someone out there has had a similar experience or maybe going through something similar to you. And sometimes it takes us just being a little humble to say like, hey, I need some help. I need somebody to talk to me. I need someone to share with me their version of what's going on and advice to go from there. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you mind if I do a shameless plug?
Absolutely. I was going to ask you to. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a men's community group for exactly what you're talking about. Where on Monday, I host a live Zoom. It's called Mastering Manhood. So it doesn't matter if you're single, married, If you are a man, you should be on that call. Wednesday, we do a Bible study call. And then on Thursday, we do a call on dating your wife. How do we bring chivalry back? How do you be the most dangerous man possible, but still be chivalrous? And then on Saturdays, we do family leadership calls for men who are married, who have children. And we go over these. We do live Zooms, these 4 to 5 live Zooms every week. Because like you mentioned, so many people don't know where to go. Dads aren't talking to other dads.
Yep.
So it's like why I have this community. So we got guys from all over the United States. Got a guy from Brazil. It's like, where can you go? And I encourage anyone, find like-minded men in your community and physically meet up.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time today. I'm very grateful for the work you're doing. We need it. We need more men out there that are able to come together and share and learn from one another. So I appreciate you being here. And, I'm looking forward to jumping into one of your sessions with you and kind of going from there and listening and learning myself. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Dude, no problem.
Awesome. For those that are watching, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining into the Watch Stats podcast. Please take a moment to look over everything over season 2. It's a great season, some great phenomenal dads that are on here sharing their stories and everything that they have that's been going through, and a space that can relate to what you're going through in life. Until next time, we'll see you then.